Welcome back to App Stories. Today's show is brought to you by Memberful, Bills to Budget, and OneBlocker. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hi, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. You know, we had a really great conversation in the pre-show today all about gaming on the Apple Vision Pro and my early experiments with it. You had a lot of questions. I provided some tips to people. It's an ongoing experiment. I will write about it eventually, but it's one of those things that takes a lot of time, and there's a lot of setup involved. I've got a lot of cables, a lot of accessories and boxes and capture cards and all kinds of things to deal with. And I tend to try to do it when Jennifer's not around because, it's kind of creates a mess in the house. It's a lot of setup and a lot of takedown. But anyway, if you're interested in hearing a little bit about those early experiments and get started yourself, you can subscribe to App Stories Plus by going to appstories.plus, or you can become a Club Premier member, which gets App Stories plus a bunch of other goodies. Just go to plus.club to learn more about Club Premier and all the things we offer there. All right, Federico, you have had the Apple Vision Pro for 2 days.
Yes.
I've had it for a week.
Yes.
We're coming from very different perspectives. You're living in my past a little bit, but you're catching up very, very quickly from what I can tell. I thought today we would talk about our first impressions and what we're doing and what we like and where we're finding issues and all those sorts of things. But first, I think we need to talk about the odyssey of getting a Vision Pro to Rome, Italy.
Oh, man. Well, so obviously we talked previously about my strategy for ordering a Vision Pro using a VPN, John's secondary Apple ID, using the govisibly.com website to get a valid US prescription. That, of course, led to John receiving a Vision Pro. And sort of our plan was, well, let's just pay for the most expensive DHL shipping option to make sure that I get it as quickly as possible. And let's make sure that the package has insurance. I knew going into this that there were going to be additional costs for me to get a Vision Pro in Italy, shipping and paying import taxes. Because, of course, when package reaches Italian customs or reaches just any European Union customs office, you got to pay your import taxes. Even though you also pay taxes for like sales tax in the US, you still got to pay taxes in Europe. So I knew there were going to be costs. What we didn't know, because it was the first time that you and I, we arranged a shipment for a package with a certain value, we didn't know about the paperwork. And that's what caused the delay. So please, John, tell us more about the paperwork for all of those out there who may be looking to purchase through a friend a Vision Pro in the United States and looking to import one in Europe. Please help our listeners make sense of what's expecting them.
Yes. Well, I'm going to turn the clock back to 2 Fridays ago when those Vision Pros arrived at my doorstep. And, there was a UPS guy who drove up to my house and he struggled. He had a lot of boxes. He had like 7 boxes. And that's because our Vision Pros were in 1 box each. The prescription lenses were in another small box, and then your accessories were in another box. And this was not even counting, we didn't get our batteries the first day. It took a couple of more days for those to reach my house. But when they arrived, first of all, I got to say, I was shocked that the UPS guy didn't make me sign for these. They were going to just leave them at the door. Thank goodness I was home, because they just dropped like, I don't know, what was it, like $8,000 worth of computer equipment in front of my house. And would have just driven away. But I was there. I picked him up, brought him inside. I had a little difficult time telling yours from mine, and I didn't want to get it wrong. I knew that we had compared notes, and it looked like our light seals were exactly the same size, but I didn't really want to risk it on those. And I wanted to obviously make sure that our lenses were correct. And when I looked at the boxes, the only boxes that had the UPS shipping number on it that I had were the lenses. So I was able to figure out the lenses very quickly, opened mine up to make sure mine were, in fact, that was correct. And they were mine, and they were. And then the rest, I was like, I don't know which one of these Vision Pros is mine. And so eventually I figured it out by going back to the receipts that I got in email and finding the serial number, which was your idea, which was brilliant because the serial numbers are on the labels on the outside of the
Mm,
box. I had already at that point opened yours up, but I still wasn't sure because it's just a sealed box inside of a box. So I just
right.
taped yours back up and got it ready to go. So I took everything over to my guy Mike, and Mike and I have become very close, Federico.
Yeah. Yeah. You're
Mike
very
is
close with Mike.
Mike is the owner of a local shipping shop that's only like, less than a mile from my house. Very easy to get to, perfect for doing. I've shipped the Mac Story Selects Awards from there. So I've been over at Mike's shop quite a bit lately for that and some other things that I'd shipped to you. And he's gotten to know me, and he's kind of glad to see me because I do mostly international shipping, and
It
that
means
costs
money
costs a
when he
lot of
sees you.
money. Yeah, and the way these shops work is like DHL mostly operates in the United States through these shops. They don't have a lot of their own storefronts. So this is like a shop that will use FedEx or UPS or DHL or whatever, and they get some, there's some small markup I think that he gets for
Hmm.
for shipping through
Yeah,
DHL.
for sure.
And we filled out all the paperwork. And whenever you do this internationally, not only is there just kind of the usual, weighing the package. First, it was hard to find a package to really put your stuff in because it was too big for one, just barely too big for one size. So we had to go a box size up, which is why you had a box full of all that packing material, because I didn't want it all shifting around. So we had to pay a little extra for that. But then you have a bunch of paperwork because you have to, in the EU, there are these things they call harmonized codes, which are basically a catalog of every kind of thing you could ship in the world. So it's like
Yes.
all the stuff in the world, and it's a number, and the number has to match. You have to match the number to what you're shipping. And sometimes it's a little hard to describe. Like I sent you a developer strap the other day, and I was like, USB cable, USB
Yeah.
adapter. What is this thing? It's a spare part for a virtual reality headset, basically. So you figure all that out. You fill out the paperwork. It has to be signed. It has to be sent in triplicate. It's a lengthy process. So I'm there for quite a while. That's why I've gotten to know Mike, because we're chatting away
Yeah.
as
Sure.
as you do. Well, it takes a good, I'm usually there for like a half an hour to ship stuff for you. And so we send it off, and it goes into the DHL system
Yeah.
on a Friday, which is never good. Shipping on a Friday is not great because it
Mm-mm.
means
No.
it's probably gonna spend the weekend somewhere, whether it's in the US
Exactly. It goes immediately to a warehouse, but it starts moving either on Sunday night or Monday morning.
exactly. It's gonna sit somewhere for a while. And so we didn't really think anything of it much on the weekend because that's usually what happens. It went from Charlotte to Greensboro, North Carolina, which is like a couple of hours away. And from there, it went to Cincinnati, Ohio, which is
Yeah.
the wrong direction, just to be clear. It's the Midwest. It's going north and west from where I live, not due east, which is what it should be doing to go to Europe. But that is where DHL has its hub and does all of its international shipping out of. And it got there, and then the parcel app just didn't update. And we started getting
Stopped.
right. We started getting concerned. And then I got an email from a guy named Tommy, and Tommy told me I needed some numbers. I needed that my invoice wasn't correct. And so I had to get some additional numbers for something this expensive. And I was told variously that the cutoff is $2,500 and
Yeah.
$3,000. I don't know which one of those is correct, but suffice it to say, I've never sent you anything worth even more than $1,000.
No.
So
No.
it was somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000 that kind of set off the alerts and gave this more scrutiny.
Yeah.
I needed a tax ID number for that.
Yeah.
So I had to
Yeah.
get a tax ID number that had to go on
Yeah.
the invoice.
Yeah. So this is the advice for people.
Yeah, the
If you
first
plan
advice. Yes.
If you plan on shipping a Vision Pro and you want to declare the actual value of the Vision Pro without lying to customs, you're going to need a tax ID. You're going to need this additional paperwork to put on a commercial invoice for the product.
Right.
Otherwise, customs in the US are going to get suspicious and they're going to hold your package.
Right. So the IRS wants to know about this shipping,
Yep.
and which obviously made me a little nervous. But fingers crossed, I'm okay with the IRS.
And on my side, while you were dealing with this, on my side in Italy, I got an email from Italian Customs saying, hey, we got this photo of this shipping label for this package that's on the way to you. Can you describe what it is and what you plan on doing with it? And and so I had to reply to this email saying, okay, it's a VR headset that I plan to use for personal use. I just said to watch movies and play video games because it just felt like an easy way to explain product.
Yep.
So I just gave him my full name, phone number, address, and I said it's a VR headset for movies and video games, and I plan on using it myself. I am the person importing this product.
Right, exactly. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Memberful. Memberful is best-in-class membership software used by the web's biggest creators, publishers, and media companies. If you're building a membership website for a client, Memberful handles all the hard stuff so you can complete your builds quickly and your clients can focus on creating content while earning revenue with ease. We've been using Memberful for a long time at Mac Stories for Club Mac Stories. It helps us with all sorts of things, and it's really grown well with us. We started back in 2015 and have been using it for 8 years to track memberships, to offer downloads, and to do things like send our newsletter. Memberful protects member-only content and allows site owners to select which subscribers get access to protected areas of your website using server-side content protections. It seamlessly integrates with WordPress and features a host of shortcodes and built-in WordPress functions, so you can insert dynamic links and integrate Memberful data with your WordPress theme. Plus, Memberful has built-in connections with popular tools like MailChimp, Discord, and Google Analytics, so site owners can reach and monetize their existing audience without rebuilding their entire tech stack. With Memberful, your clients always have full control and ownership of their audience and their brand. The software also maintains a GraphQL API, webhooks, and OAuth single sign-on to make integrating even easier. Memberful has everything your client needs to run a membership program, including a streamlined and powerful checkout system, an easy-to-use member portal, transactional emails, and a member management dashboard. Memberful's analytics give your clients an easy-to-use, in-depth view of what's working, what's not, and where to double down. Help your clients monetize their passion today by getting started for free at memberful.com/appstories. That's memberful.com/appstories. Our thanks to Memberful for their support of the show. I think you were led to believe that it was already in Germany. But
they told me it was in Germany, but it actually wasn't.
Right. It was actually in Ohio. So there was like 2 days where you and I had literally no idea where the package was. And at one point, DHL told me it was in Arizona, which I almost lost my mind when I heard that. There were points here where I was on the verge of just going a little crazy with DHL.
Screaming on the phone.
Yeah, but I didn't. There were a lot of phone calls involved here. And so here's the thing, Federico. The reason I got on the phone, it's because when you go to either their website or their phone tree, their automated phone tree, or their chatbot, and you say you have a problem with a delivery, they ask you for the number, the tracking number.
Yeah.
You give them the tracking number, and then they tell you when it's supposed to be delivered. There's no option for, option for, I have a problem, it's stuck in customs. So I had to eventually find my way, and I did this, the chatbot actually, find my way to a telephone number, which they hide very carefully. A telephone number where I could call a call center and talk to someone, and they opened a incident report for us. And so they were tracking it down, and they were early on, they were very bad about keeping me up to date. So I would have to call back periodically. And we wanted this to get to you as soon as possible. So I was a pest. I called them frequently. Kind of at the beginning of the day and towards the end of the day. And after we got this number and put it on the invoice, I found out, only because I called back just to check on the status, that, that was good, but we needed more. We needed your invoice to be itemized in more detail, or you're going to have problems once it gets to the EU. And I was like, well, when were you planning to tell me this? And they had no answer for that. They basically just, no, this isn't good enough. We're just going to let it sit here. Meanwhile, I had been told that if it wasn't resolved by Friday, they were just going to send it back to me. And that's no good, because then we were going to spend the shipping cost twice. So they said, what we need from you is a new invoice that itemizes every item in the box.
Because there's multiple items, right? There's the Vision Pro, there's the case,
right?
There's what else?
The battery holder,
the battery holder, the lenses.
Lenses.
It was a whole thing. It was a whole collection of items,
right?
And so they wanted a more detailed invoice for European customs to open the box and say, okay, let's see, we have a VR headset, we have a battery holder, we have lenses, and we have a case. Okay,
right. And you had to assign a value to every one of those, a weight, and a harmonized code. Now, I didn't even have, we didn't have the box anymore to weigh each item. And so we just kind of faked that.
Yeah.
And this phone call, this was like the height of this. There were 2 days that were very stressful. This
was the turning point. This was the sort of the climax of this adventure.
Right. This was Wednesday. Tuesday was the day that we were dealing with the tax number, and that was a little stressful. That was very stressful. But Wednesday was the day when it's like, all right, well, we need to do something about this invoice. And I'm talking to them on the phone and looking at the clock and then Googling when, because they were like, you need to go back to the person who shipped this for you and get a new invoice. And I'm looking at the clock, and I'm looking on the website and seeing that it's 5:10 in the evening and the guy's shop closes at 5:30. So I kind of finish up the phone call. I literally just yell up the stairs to Jennifer, I'm leaving. I need to go to
Mike
to go see Mike. I'll be back in like a half an hour. Didn't have time to explain. Zoomed over to his shop, and he put together a brand new invoice by hand in longhand.
My God.
Because one of the problems is like the actual invoice, the commercial invoice that's sent originally is computer printed, and that's what they kind of wanted. But it's tied to the label, and to undo that and revise it is hard because the label's already live in the system, so it wasn't really doable. So he created a handwritten invoice using some forms they had at the shop and did it that way. But I had at one point on a call, someone had told me that you can't just revise the invoice by writing things in longhand. And so I was nervous. So we also found a way to revise that original invoice to reflect the detail in the package. And I'll leave it to listeners' imaginations how that might have been possible. But that PDF was updated to include an itemized list of items. And I sent both of them, hoping that wouldn't cause confusion, but thinking if they didn't like the handwritten one, at least they've got this other one with the original date on it too. Because I was also concerned about the dates and everything. At this point, I'm second guessing everything and trying to anticipate what customs will freak out about and get this to you as soon as possible. So we sent that, and that was Wednesday evening. And
first of all, Mike is the real hero here. You and Mike are the real heroes here. But so that was Wednesday evening, and the moment I knew that it worked and that everything was gonna be fine was when I woke up on Thursday morning with an email from DHL saying, "Hey, here's a link for you to pay import taxes for this shipment."
Right.
So when I saw that email with that link, and when I paid my taxes to import the product, I knew I was going to be fine. Because when you get that link to pay your taxes online, it's the final step. You pay them, the package is now moving, it's been virtually accepted into the EU, and when it physically reaches customs, and the customs officer looks at it and sees the invoice that said, this is the product, taxes have been paid, these are the items, these are the categories, the customs officer is just going to let it through. And they did. And so on Friday morning, I got it.
Right. And, it was as soon as you told me that you had paid the customs taxes, I looked on DHL's website and I saw, yes, it hadn't even updated in parcel yet, but it was on its way, or it had landed in Germany, which is one of the places they typically go. Leipzig.
Leipzig. Yeah. So
Yeah, so it landed there, and it usually it's very quick to get from there to Rome usually, and it
Yeah.
was. You got it by the next day, which was fantastic.
Overnight from Germany to Rome, and then it was out for delivery on Friday morning, and mid-morning I got it, and I rushed downstairs to my doorman Giovanni, and it had this giant box
It's a
with a
big
lot of
box.
like those, what are those, like those like
They call them peanuts, like packing peanuts.
fucking peanuts, that's the name? Okay.
Yeah, they're not, and these are nice biodegradable ones. These were not foam ones that are bad for the environment.
Oh, I
But
thought it was foam. Okay.
I don't think they're foam. I think that they're biodegradable. But they're in there because, like I said, we had to go with a slightly bigger box because your stuff wouldn't fit in it. It was just a little bit too big for the other standard size box. And I told him, I said, well, this stuff is all in its original packaging, so it's probably okay. But I didn't want it like shifting around a ton on an airplane, so we put that in there.
All right. So that sort of sums up the adventure. We previously described the ordering process.
Yeah.
This has been the shipping process. So, piece of advice again for anyone looking to import one from the United States. First of all, make sure you're using a shipping service that is tracking and hopefully the ability to pay your import taxes online, because you don't want to hand out hundreds of euros in cash to your delivery guy.
Right.
And second, my advice would be don't get too clever with trying to avoid paying import taxes,
Right.
because customs will get mad.
Well, yeah, and there have been stories.
that.
Yeah, we've seen stories online that the German customs has arrested like 8 or so people who have been trying to bring in
Sneak
Apple
a Vision Pro into.
yeah, without paying their import taxes. And so that that is a risk that you take. It is very expensive. I mean, Federico can tell you that there was a huge expense, both the shipping and the taxes. You could have bought yourself a MacBook Air with the amount that you paid in shipping and taxes.
Yes. Yeah, it's basically, I mean, let's face it, it's basically half the cost of a Vision Pro.
Right.
Because you're paying 22% for Italian taxes. And then you have, we went with the express shipping option, which, given the delays, didn't at this point, it didn't necessarily make sense. But
well, you know what? It actually, there was only one speed for DHL. DHL only does one speed, so you weren't paying extra actually. Because I asked if there was a way to get it to you faster, and they said no. So that it would have cost that much. Whether you normally, if I shipped that on a Friday, you probably would have gotten it on a Tuesday. Typically, so you were delayed like 3 days, but that would have cost the same regardless.
Yeah.
So
well, DHL only has one gear. Go. That's what they do. From the US.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Bills to Budget. Late fees are expensive and can kill your credit score for years to come. Sometimes bill payments and charges don't hit your bank account for a few days either. And if you forget about them, they can result in overdraft charges that add up quickly. One little mistake can cost you hundreds. With Bills to Budget, you can get started simply. Just start by tracking your bills completely for free. And when you're ready, you can move on to managing your spending budgets. Money management isn't just a one-player game either. Share your data with a family member with the Family Plus package so everyone will be on the same page about your finances. Add your pay schedule, and Bills to Budget will tell you exactly when things are due during the pay period, the next pay period, and beyond that. If you sometimes pay bills from different accounts, Bills to Budget lets you create multiple accounts and assign them to any bill, budget, or payment. So not only do you know which account you pay the bill from each month, but you can tell exactly what payments are pending for each account. Once you get your bills under control, it's time to tackle your spending. Create spending budgets for groceries, gas, fund money, or whatever else you might need. Everyone can benefit from creating a budget, whether you pay your bills paycheck to paycheck or you have a strong income with money in the bank. Tracking your spending with the app is simple too. Record transactions in the app via Siri or with an Apple Pay personal automation. You can even automate the process with shortcuts. Review and replenish your spending budgets every week, month, or whenever you get paid with the simple budget review process. It makes it simple to account for any upcoming bills or pending payments. Plus, you'll know exactly where your money is going with the app's various visualizations. And you can sync your data across all of your devices, including Vision Pro. Get your bills paid on time and your budgets under control with Bills to Budget. To learn more and download the app, go to billstobudget.com/appstories24. Again, that's billstobudget.com/appstories and the number 24. I'll put a link in the show notes too. Our thanks to Bills to Budget for their support of the show.
It's going to be impossible for us to fit all of our first impressions into a single episode of the show, unless we want to do a 3-hour episode, but we don't want to do a 3-hour episode. So I think, given that we just spent 25 minutes talking about shipping,
Yeah.
I think we should focus on the hardware and the sort of the setup, the first impressions of the hardware. And given that I've only used this for 2 days, I think it's probably best if we save the software for next week.
That's a good idea.
I really want to use it more.
Right.
But in doing hardware, I'm gonna have a tiny, teeny surprise for you, John.
Oh, good. What?
So, well, it's a small thing, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it in a minute.
All right.
All right. So, what did you do first when you got it? When you got the Vision Pro? Because personally, I just sit there like an idiot taking pictures and sort of admiring the hardware. It is a beautiful piece of hardware.
It really is. I think the first thing I did was I took pictures of the boxes and sent them to you guys, to you and Mike and Steven. So I did that, and then I opened it up, and I was just kind of blown away by it's such nice hardware, and it's so nicely packaged. Like that box is heavy. I mean,
yes,
I can only imagine how much of your shipping cost was just because of the weight of the box itself.
Oh my God. Yeah. That it was a heavy cardboard box.
Yeah.
And my God, so much recycling I had to do, all the paper and the DHL added some plastic tape. Like, it was so much paper. I filled 2 trash bags of paper and I took to the recycling center downstairs.
Yeah.
It was just so much paper.
Yeah, my recycling bin is completely full to the top too, between all the stuff I've had sent to me recently. But yes, that's what I did is I got it out and I just started setting it up. And we're not going to talk really too much about the software, but I really did feel like this setup process for this device was one of the best setups I've ever been through, because this is a very new thing to anyone who buys it, right? I mean, even if you're like you and you've tried it once before, it's still a very new experience the first time that it arrives at your doorstep, and you can use it kind of unfettered. And that's a little intimidating, I think, in a lot of ways. Like, you don't really know what to do. And what I think that the setup process does, it does a very good job of walking you through the steps of getting it ready and doing it at a pace that kind of eases you into the device and gets you feeling comfortable with what you're doing, so that once you're done setting it up, you're ready to go and you're feeling like, yeah, I can do this, and I think that that's super important for something that's this new and different compared to anything we've done before. Because, face it, when the iPad first came out, yeah, the iPad wasn't that hard to set up because we had all, most of us had done that kind of thing with an iPhone, and it was basically the same thing. It wasn't a big difference. And you buy a new laptop, it's just like setting up your old laptop. Those experiences are known quantities, but this is so new that I think that first run experience is incredibly important. And I thought that both the way it was handled and the pacing were perfect for this device.
Yeah, I thought it was also very well done. And I remembered doing the initial setup at WWDC, like the guided process for making sure that eye tracking works, that hand tracking works, like looking at the dots. I am convinced that they have slightly tweaked the eye tracking setup process from WWDC. I don't remember it being 3 steps. I'm pretty sure that it used to be 2 steps, but maybe it's my memory that doesn't serve me right now.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by OneBlocker. Ads on websites are becoming more annoying every single day, competing with your attention. Some websites have so many ad banners that they take up almost the entire screen, making it almost impossible to read the website's content. That's where OneBlocker comes in. It's a content blocker for Safari that makes web browsing pleasant again. OneBlocker has been developed by an indie developer since 2015. It was one of the very first iOS apps on the App Store that offered content blocking for Safari. And now, OneBlocker is one of the first native Vision OS apps bringing its ad blocking features to spatial computing. On day one, OneBlocker released an updated version of the app built from the ground up to support Vision OS and the Apple Vision Pro. The latest release also enhances OneBlocker's blocking capabilities, which means more precise ad blocking, reducing the instances of missed ads and website functionality issues. OneBlocker offers much more than just ad blocking, too. Its default filters include various categories, such as blocking annoyances like cookie notices, newsletter subscription prompts, and marketing widgets. In addition, it blocks trackers that collect all kinds of information about you and provides filters for adult sites and parental controls. OneBlocker also offers ad blocking on YouTube.com and Twitter.com in Safari, two highly requested features by users. Ad blocking is completely free on OneBlocker because you can enable one filter for free. To gain access to all other filters, you can upgrade to a premium subscription available monthly or yearly, or opt for a lifetime purchase. OneBlocker also offers a free 2-week trial, so you can try all of the filters to see for yourself if you want to upgrade to premium. So go today to oneblocker.com to learn more and download the app. That's the number oneblocker.com to try OneBlocker today. OneBlocker. Enjoy websites without distractions.
So I took it out of the box and started taking pictures and just sort of like holding the thing. Like
Right.
it's got that sense of like premium hardware, like sort of the same feeling that the AirPods Max have. Like it's heavy, not as heavy as I imagined, but it is like it's so much more premium looking and feeling than say a Meta Quest.
Yeah. And I do feel a little awkward carrying it around the house.
Yeah, I'm very like careful, like always putting the cover back on when I don't use it, and making sure that like the cable with the battery doesn't like hang off a table, so that maybe one of my dogs could knock the battery over and take the Vision Pro with it. Like I'm being very careful with it.
Yeah, I've already had problems with like when I'm using it, like accidentally having the battery fall out of my pocket or knock it off the desk, and it like yanks on my head. And
I'm not a huge fan. This is very particular thing. I'm not a huge fan of the cable of the battery. I think it's a very stiff cable. Mm-hmm. And I would have preferred. I like that it's a nylon braided cable. That's obviously the right decision. But I would have liked something more. Are you familiar, John, with the Apple Thunderbolt 3 Pro cable?
Oh yeah,
That it's slightly more. It's slightly chunkier,
yes,
and it's not as stiff. Like you
it's smoother too, isn't it?
It's like smoother. Yes. Yes, so I would have preferred the feeling of the Apple Thunderbolt 3 Pro cable. So I made one critical mistake when I started using the Vision Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually two critical mistakes. One, I completely disregarded the fact that there was a bigger face cushion in the box. I just went with the standard one.
So did I.
And I realized later, why am I feeling all this pressure on my forehead? And later I realized, there's an additional one that says W plus on it, and that's the bigger one.
Yep.
And once I swapped that, it was much more comfortable. And also, for the first like full day, I completely ignored the dual loop band, like
so did I.
The dual strap. Yep. I just used the solo one, and it hit me at one point, like later that day, like I was in bed at night and I was getting this headache after like wearing the Vision Pro for 2 hours, and I was like, oh my God, like this is not ideal. And I kept adjusting. Like once you start feeling it, it's a combination of the pressure on your forehead, but mostly the weight, right? So
Yeah.
it's your face holding the Vision Pro with the Solo band. And so I kept adjusting like the Solo strap in the back of my head, like turning it a little bit up and then a little bit down. I kept
Mm-hmm.
adjusting the dial, which is a very nice mechanism to have a dial to adjust sort of the width of a strap. But as soon as I swapped it with the dual strap, it was so much better and so much more
Yeah.
comfortable. I highly recommend doing these two things. Make sure that you try the other cushion size that you should have in your box, and give the dual strap a try, because it's not as sort of pick it up and go. It's not as intuitive as the Solo band. The Solo band is fine for 30 minutes of use. Like, you want to watch an episode of, I don't know, Ted Lasso, it's fine. But you want to work in the thing for a couple of hours, trust me, use the dual strap.
Yeah, I agree. I had a similar experience with these things. I used the smaller of the light shields originally. Is that the light shield, or is that called
So
something
the
else?
light shield should be the gray part.
What's the
and
black
the
part called? The cushion?
The cushion, I
Okay.
think.
All right.
I
Yeah.
think.
So I used the thinner
That's
one.
how I call it.
Okay,
I don't
that's-
know. Yeah, I think the light seal. The light seal.
Light
is
seal. Right.
Yeah.
So I used the thinner one at first too, and it seemed okay. But then I thought that I was having, I don't know, I had a little bit of light leaking issues, and I thought I'm going to try the other one. I tried it, and it was so much more comfortable. It is important to get one that fits, because even the tiniest bit of light that leaks in there can be really distracting, because it refracts off the lenses, and probably it's even worse if you have, prescription lenses in it like we do, because it reflects off there. You can get some light refracted into your eye from,
Yeah.
and I find that can be a problem for me in the afternoon in my office, because the sun is blaring directly through my window sideways at me. And so sometimes it can come around the edge there. And I've seen it in a couple other circumstances, but I think the bigger one for me has done a better job of both sealing the light out and being more comfortable. I had, oh, and on the straps, yeah, the thing about the Solo knit one is that when you think about it, I mean, no matter how well it's designed, it's still just basically pulling that thing directly into your face
Yes.
in order to keep it on. And, you sent me the picture of the dent in your forehead after you had used it. And
Yep.
that's exactly how you're going to end up, because there's a lot of pressure on your forehead and the bridge of your nose and even your cheekbones, that with the dual loop, you can kind of, what I find works really well is, first of all, it is more fiddly to put on, but once you get used to it, you don't really have to adjust the top straps anymore.
Exactly.
Right?
Just find your size and then leave it like that.
Right.
And you can just take it off and put it back on.
Right. And then you can just loosen the back one when you want to take it off. And then when you put it on, I usually put it on and don't tighten it all the way to where I want it. I tighten it, then I kind of scooch that band down kind of below the little shelf on your head, right before your neck, and then tighten it a little more. And that, because it's kind of hooked underneath my head, is pulling it up and taking the pressure off the rest of my face, whether it's my nose or my forehead or whatever. And that works super, super well. The other thing, it was really funny when I first used the Solo Knit one, I tried just taking off the Vision Pro without loosening the band at all. And that's not a good idea.
No, it's not a good idea.
It's really hard to get off once you've tightened it. So you should always loosen and tighten the band every time you use the bands. I mean, I guess it seems obvious, but it wasn't obvious to me. I mean, again, it's like such a new thing that you do stupid things when you first use it. And what do you think of the lenses? Let me ask you about your prescription lenses. What do you think about those?
Perfect. My prescription worked. I find the attaching mechanism so well done.
Oh my gosh. How good is it compared to the X-Reel?
I was just gonna say, just the X-Reel. I lost, like, when I first got my X-Reel glasses, just trying to insert the prescription attachment.
It's really hard.
It took me a good 30 minutes to figure out the angle that I was supposed to work with, and I had to watch a YouTube video.
So did I.
To do it. And if you ask me today, like, go swap your prescription lenses on the X-Reel, I was like, I wouldn't be able to do it, like, out of memory. The Vision Pro is so satisfying. Like, it's so Apple.
Oh yeah,
how they
it just
did
clicks right in there.
It clicks her in. It's like click, and it's got the little indicator to show you like what the orientation of the lens is.
Yep.
I found the whole process. So when you get your lenses from Zeiss, they come with a special QR code on the box that it's like reminiscent. Do you remember the QR codes for like app clips on the App Store?
Yeah, those still exist.
Yeah, it's sort of in that style, and and so the Vision Pro needs to know what sort of a prescription you're wearing, and so you scan with your Vision Pro. You scan the little pamphlet in the box, and you scan the QR code, and so the Vision Pro knows, well, so this prescription is -3 on one side and -0.25 on the other side. You're good to go. And so it pairs the Vision Pro with those prescription lenses. It's incredibly well done, like from both a hardware and software standpoint. I really, really like it. Let me ask you, John, what do you think of the Apple travel case?
I do not have one.
Oh, you do not have one?
I have
okay.
And I've never touched one, so I have no idea what they're like. I've been thinking about it because I was like, I don't know. I mean, everybody seems to be really in love with that travel case, so maybe I'll get one, but I'm not planning to take it anywhere right away, so I haven't gotten one yet.
I am here to save the day for you, John.
All right.
So I got the Apple travel case. In hindsight, big mistake. Don't get it.
Really?
It's very okay. So look, it's very nicely done. It's a very nice material. It reminds me really of like an astronaut like piece of gear. The white color and the texture. It's very futuristic in a way.
It's going to get dirty. That's one thing I thought when I saw it.
But my main problem is it's so huge. Like it's giant. That thing cannot fit in any backpack.
Oh,
and I travel to Viterbo every week with a backpack, and this thing wouldn't fit inside of it. So, listen to me.
I was put off by the price. I was like, another $200 really just for a case? So I've been kind of waiting for a third-party one that catches my eye. And I saw.
Hold on.
Okay, because I saw Waterfield has one, but
no. Hold on. Here comes the surprise. You go on Amazon.com.
Yeah.
I got it from Amazon Italy, but it's available everywhere.
Okay.
And for $50, probably even less, you get. It's called the Syntech. That's SYN Tech.
Send me the link because I've been looking on Amazon and I think I might have seen this one.
You want to get the Syntech case, medium size, okay? You want to get the medium size is fine. You get the Syntech case. It's a MetaQuest 2 and 3 VR headset case. It totally fits the Vision Pro. I saw this advice on Reddit. It's perfect. It's much more compact. It's sturdy. It's got a it's got
nice.
enough. It's got a compartment for the Vision Pro, obviously with a strap that secures it in place. You can fit your battery inside. It's scratch resistant. It's much more compact. Put it in a backpack. You're fine. I got it for €43 from Amazon Italy, so about $50 from Amazon.com.
It's €35 now.
See, there you go.
Depends on what. I guess it depends on what size and color you get.
Oh, you want to get the medium one,
right?
Don't get the small one. Don't get the large one. Get the medium one.
Yeah, I got to look on the U.S. App Store on the U.S.
So $50, you get a much more compact case for your Vision Pro. This is what
this is exactly what I was looking for, Federico, because I saw that the Apple one, and as nice as it looks, I was like, I really want something that I can throw in my backpack and that is just there to protect it, and like maybe just for moving it around the house or whatever, moving it from my office to the living room or whatever. So this is perfect. Did you get black or did you get the light color?
Light gray. That's what I got.
Okay, yeah, I see that one. That's a good. It looks very nice. It actually looks very nice.
Looks very nice. I'll send you pictures later.
Right.
So we can put it in the show notes. And the final thing I want to talk about today, before we're saving software for next time, is keyboard input.
Oh yeah.
And I have a couple of updates for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you recall, I mentioned that I was going to get a bridge keyboard, an older bridge keyboard that supposedly they have these bridge keyboards on clearance sale on Amazon. You can get one for like $50.
Yeah.
And they were updated to the latest bridge firmware before the company shut down. And the latest bridge firmware correctly advertises the built-in touchpad as a native multi-touch trackpad to the iPadOS settings, and therefore, at least in theory, to the Vision Pro settings.
How do you know? How do you know what firmware is
Well,
on a device on Amazon?
you can use a first of all, you can use an app, but really there's a very easy way to check. You cannot know beforehand, so you got to wait until the keyboard arrives to you to check. But the most certain way to know whether you are dealing with an old school, quote unquote, trackpad or a modern trackpad that supports multi-touch and gestures and therefore has the latest firmware is the following. You pair the keyboard, you go to the settings app, you go to general, and then if you see trackpad and mouse, it means it's the old firmware. If settings general just says trackpad, it means it's the modern firmware that supports multi-touch gestures.
Got it.
However, I did this. I tried this. I have an older bridge keyboard that I got from Amazon.com. It's got the latest firmware. I paired it with the Vision Pro. Keyboard input, the trackpad just doesn't work. The pointer never appears.
Interesting.
So I went back to using the sort of strategy that I knew I was going to use, which is the Apple Magic Keyboard and Apple Magic Trackpad inside of the 12 South Magic Bridge.
All right. Let me tell you what I'm doing. I got a Magic Bridge too, and for whatever reason, my keyboard and trackpad didn't fit quite right. I must have made a mistake in ordering it, but I did a little teachy mod. Got out my
Nice.
X-Acto knife, shaved down the corners just a little bit,
Perfect.
and
Yes.
it all fit in perfectly fine once I did that. And what I found was what I don't like is I don't like centering the keyboard, in front of me so I can have my hands on it and having the trackpad off to the side. So what I did is I went another route. I have the Magic Keyboard and I have a Magic Trackpad. These are spares that I had that originally I bought with the iPad Pro, but I don't use them with that a lot. It's not the keyboard with Touch ID. It's the one that just has it's got like a lock button there or something instead. It's a little different. It's the cheaper version, but it's totally fine because you're using Optic ID with the Vision Pro anyway. And then I've got a gray Magic Trackpad, and I have those, and I've now paired them with the Apple Vision Pro. And what I bought on Amazon for $35 that I'll put in the show notes is a lap desk. There are tons of lap desks on the market, and most of them have like a cushion on the bottom, and they usually have some kind of a lip on the surface to keep your laptop from sliding.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they have a slot for an iPhone and a surface, like a textured surface for a mouse. I didn't want any of that because all I'm doing is putting a keyboard and trackpad on this thing, and I wanted some space. So what I ended up getting is basically just a curved piece of flat wood that has handles on it, so it's easy to carry around. And I can put the keyboard right in the middle in front of me. It's 30.5 inches width. And then I can put the trackpad off to either side, whichever I want to use that day. And it's perfect with the thing because it doesn't have any slots or textures or lips or anything. It just sits there. If I want, I can put a pillow under it to prop it up a little bit more if I'm sitting on the couch or whatever. But it's perfect for around the house, and it's lightweight and very inexpensive and really has been pretty nice. It just showed up yesterday, and I've only used it a little bit so far, but pretty happy with it as far as it goes so far.
All right. Well, and I think that about sums up the hardware so far. And obviously, we're going to have a lot more thoughts about the software in next week's episode. And obviously, I've also started publishing app reviews for the Vision Pro and Mac Stories. You've been amazing, sort of covering the initial wave of apps, but our list of apps that we want to check out and review is long. So keep an eye on Mac Stories for all kinds of Vision Pro coverage, in addition, of course, to all the other things we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And besides the apps, we've got things like I just published a story about how to take good screenshots on the Vision Pro, which is surprisingly tricky and a little bit janky. So, there are a lot of tips in there and troubleshooting guides and everything to try to help people along, both people like you and I who are doing it to publish them on a website, but also developers too. So that's a good a good resource for people. I'll have a gaming story eventually. Not sure whether it's one
Nice.
big story or a series. We'll figure that out. Maybe you'll be involved. Maybe it'll just be me. These are the things that we're figuring out as we go, because we also have a lot more app coverage coming as well. So stay tuned to macstories.net for that. I want to thank our sponsors for this episode. That's Memberful, Bills to Budget, and OneBlocker. You can find me and Federico over at macstories.net. We're on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net and johnvorhees.macstories.net to follow us there. We're also on Threads and Instagram. Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.